You're on mute.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. And we want to thank you for taking the time for joining us for today's session. I am your host for today, Audra Mitchell. And we want to thank you also, our regulars, for your continued patronage to these sessions. So today we're going to be exploring the topic, the emerging importance of a side hustle. So you're probably wondering why this topic and why now? Well, as more traditional work is being disrupted by both technological improvements and economic challenges, and more recently COVID, many families and many persons are experiencing income disruption. On a parallel level, we're also seeing an increase in the number of small and micro businesses and the potential that these have to contribute to the economy. So based on all these factors, we're having our discussion today. So to assist with this exploration, I'm extremely excited to welcome and introduce our panelists. So for our regulars, you realize that we're doing a panel session today. So it's a little different, but equally exciting. So firstly, I'd like to welcome and introduce Mrs. Julie Avey, our SVP, People and Culture, Massey Group, and also the co-designer of the Nudge project, which we'll be speaking about in a little more detail in a short while. We also have joining us Ms. Anya Ayoung, who is a design strategist and entrepreneur. And Anya is also known worldwide as the winner of Project Runway Season 9 in 2011. And she made both Trinidad and the Caribbean extremely proud. So we'll be discussing with Anya her experiences on this entrepreneur journey. Also with us today is Ms. Alana Jordan, a former Massey employee who worked with the group for 6 years, and actually I had the pleasure of working with her. And she's now an entrepreneur and the proud owner of the business called Avey Nuts. So we will also hear about Alana's journey, where she'll be sharing with us her transition from an employee to having this side hustle and then a full entrepreneurial path. So to all our panelists, I want to say a warm welcome to you all. So this time, I want to invite Julie to speak to us a little bit about Nudge. Now, as Julie gets ready to take us through her presentation, we just want to put on the table that this concept of a side hustle is not really a new concept because it's been around for many years, right? So students work part-time to help their studies. Persons who have a skill in baking may have a full-time job, 8 to 4, but on a weekend or on evenings may do baking or use their skills in other ways to provide additional income to support the family. So Julie, I'd like for you to start and tell us a little bit about Nudge, right? I know it launched recently on Saturday, so could you share a little bit about Nudge, what it's all about, and about your recent launch? Julie?
Thank you, Audra, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining this conversation that I hope you're going to find is relevant and also a positive message during these difficult times. I also want to congratulate Audra and the MLI team for these great webinars. Well done. Thank you. So first of all, very quickly, before we go into the conversation for today, let me share a little bit about Nudge. So Nudge is a social enterprise powered by Massey, and its purpose is to support the growth of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises in the Caribbean, and to encourage an entrepreneurial mindset across our group. Nudge is evolving, and it is early days yet. We've really just started, even though the conversation about Nudge has been taking place for a couple of years. But the aspiration is that Nudge will support 3 tiers of entrepreneurs. Tier 1 is startups and really developing the entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurship across our group. We want to have courses offered through MLI, assistance through the emotional journey of change with mentoring programs and other outreach programs with a network of support for this Tier 1. Tier 2 is for proven entrepreneurs who are ready to grow. And then tier 3 is similar to tier 2, but focused more deliberately on businesses that Massey would invest in via a fund that we are developing right now. Many of you may have seen the memo I sent out recently to do with the launch of Nudge, and this was focused on our tier 2 entrepreneurs who are external to Massey and already proven at local pop-up markets. The focus here is on growing these businesses and using our retail footprint that we have to support these businesses. So just to let you see, this is a picture of the stand that we used for the in-store activations. The launch included these in-store activations in Massey stores, where we have beautifully crafted stands. They were designed and made in the Caribbean, presenting the products of proven entrepreneurs for a month in Trinidad. We have Nudge ambassadors manning the stands, and they have the stories behind the products they are displaying and selling. The in-store activation is also supported by a vibrant social media campaign using Instagram and Facebook to channel traffic directly to the entrepreneurs, because that is what they asked for. Hopefully Nudge is going to be well received, and we'll have Nudge stands in Massey stores throughout the region before long. So that was just a little introduction, Odds. I know you'd asked me to share a little bit about what Nudge is before we get into the conversation, so I'll hand back to you.
Great, thank you, Julie. And I know our listeners probably will have questions a little later on, so we can, if there are any more questions to what you shared. So now I want to invite Anya, just to speak a little bit about what Julie just said, and your role as a partner in this venture, and what you see as the potential opportunity that this partnership and this initiative presents to Massey. Anya?
Thank you. Thank you, Audra. And it's an absolute honor to be here. I just want to start with that. I wish I could see everyone's faces, but I can feel all the energy and excitement from all of the enrollments to be part of this webinar. It's very, very, very exciting, especially as Julie mentioned, this has been a conversation for about 2 years between Julie and I, which has manifested as Nudge. As an entrepreneur myself, particularly in the creative industries, most of you might know of me through fashion, and I have a tremendous love, as Julie has come to learn, for entrepreneurship, for entrepreneurs especially, and for the heart and passion that goes into having an entrepreneurial life. And I think what's interesting about this conversation for me, and how Nudge has helped me to see a different angle of how entrepreneurship can play not only in an individual lifestyle, but in a corporation, within the mammoth, in a sense, of a company like Massey. And some things that have really manifested through Nudge are just the ability to listen to each other, the ability to make a bridge between big business and smaller business, and how really quite revolutionary that is. I don't think only in Trinidad or even only in the Caribbean. I think just across the world, it's a massive transition to being in a more listening mindset, to being in a more open-hearted mindset of realizing that we are all human. We all have many different needs in this transitionary time that sometimes we aren't even conscious of, because so much of it is new. And I think Nudge presents such a tremendous amount of hope and possibility. And that may not mean that everybody wants to become an entrepreneur. And that has also been a big opening for me to recognize that entrepreneurship, and why I love it so much, is so much really about identifying one's passion, identifying one's sense of purpose, bringing joy into every moment. And I know with working with Julie how important that is within the structure of your job. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to sort of go off and do something completely different. And I think that's been a big opening for me, is recognizing how much it's important for each of us to have the courage, in a sense, to really identify what we love and find ways to infuse that into our everyday life, whether that is in a job or in an entrepreneurial life. So Nudge has been that for me. It's been a really amazing journey. It's been incredible to see it come to life, to see the stands in stores, to work with the entrepreneurs, to hear what their needs are, and to have the resources through Julie and my conversation to bring some of that to life as best as we can, slowly, patiently, with our courage of our own, because it has taken a lot of faith to see this through and to continue to see it through, and I'm very excited to see how it continues to evolve. Thank you again for having me, and it's just such an honor.
Great. Thank you, Anya and Julie. We heard so much passion in what you said, and I really like you spoke about passion and purpose, and even having that in your everyday role. And yes, not everybody will be an entrepreneur, but how can you recreate and reinvent even in your current roles? I really love that. So I want to invite now Alana. And firstly, Alana, I want to tell you, welcome home. It's great having you back. I haven't seen you in office for a while. So I'm going to ask you to weigh in on what you've heard, what has been shared by both Julie and Anya, and even share your perspective as someone who has made the transition from employee to entrepreneur.
Thank you, Audra. I'm so excited to be here. I've missed you guys, even though, I keep in contact via social media. It's good to be home. And I am so impressed with Julie and Anya for this initiative. I am viewing Nudge as a bridge, having been a person to take that leap of faith, moving from a desk and starting my own small business. It's good to see, as Anya would have said, the large corporations, conglomerates like Massey actually helping the small fry, and embracing and being willing to support. Everything doesn't have to be, about the competition. And I'm seeing things changing worldwide, as you said, with technology and COVID. And there is a place for small micro businesses, and now is our time. I feel really passionate about it. Now, my journey has been one that I sat at a desk for, 20 years. I spent 6 at Massey. But being a mother, a wife, older sister, that desire to have more flexibility, it was a burning desire. And I like how you said, Audra, that whether it's cake baking or you actually good with tools, you can tile, you can paint, whatever it is, if you're naturally inclined, or your God-given talent is there, why not make use of it? Why not make an income and also have that flexibility, which was very important for me. So at this time, my small business is Hefe Nuts, and it started while at Massey, and managed it because my husband was actually there supporting. We made a move to Toko Main Road from Carenage, which was a big move. And we needed to supplement the income because we were spending way too much on gas. And I said, what can we do? Because there was a night my husband said, babe, when we drive down tomorrow, I don't know how we get in back because we have no money. And I was totally traumatized. And I remember him saying, well, we have so many coconut trees. I'm going to sell coconuts. And I was like, are you mad? How are we selling coconuts? We have an accent, a winky-dink car. And this man packed the trunk with coconuts, and we came down in the morning. He parked on Edward Street and is selling coconuts out of the trunk of a car. And mind-boggling, he sold out. So, of course, there's money, and people actually started, my Massey family, because, on Edward Street in Port of Spain, we have many of the Massey subsidiaries. So United, Finance, they would come out and look for the man selling coconuts out of the trunk of this car. And that evolved, listening to my co-workers, Alana, I want to take my coconut water home. I can't hack open a coconut. And some started bringing their bottles to fill up. And we evolved, and that's what we do now. We do bottled coconut water. And I want to say to anyone who feels there's not a place for you because, you have the bigger competitors selling maybe the same product. Your product is your product and it will sell because it is yours, you know. We also introduced jelly water, which is the very light jelly floating in the water for the jelly lovers or the persons that would want to do smoothies. And that is a unique product that you don't really readily find on the supermarket shelves. So there's always ways to get your business going, get your product going. And I just really want to share with you all, even if you decide to take that leap of faith, you are leaving a desk, a computer, a phone line, but you take the people with you, the friendships, the relationships that you've developed over the years. It is there. It is right there. It is going with you. They will be there to support you. I can give you that from a first-hand experience, you know? And it's just all about continuing the love. And I took all of my learning from my Massey days, and I continue to be a force for good. Recently, with the COVID situation, there's a neighbor that we purchased coconuts from, an elderly lady. And when she saw the van pull up, she was running, and it's like, Granny, don't run, because, you know, and she was like, thank God you all come, because I can't go by the road and sell anything. And that broke me, but it opened my eyes to see that I wasn't just enriching my life, and that it by extension was, you know, being supportive of other people, and they depend on us for their bread. And that means so much, you know, it makes it worthwhile. So thank you again, Audra, for having me, you know, and I'm open to any questions. I know people may be burning up with questions, so we can move forward and take a few.
Great. Thank you, Alana. And again, you know, I liked hearing, you know, some important points that you made, you know, that as you said, we are recognizing how big businesses similar to Massey are recognizing and embracing this whole idea of entrepreneurship. You know, I was sharing with Julie just this morning that this morning on TV with our Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry, they were speaking about entrepreneurship, and when they have their annual Champions of Excellence, there's a special category that's going to be focusing on entrepreneurs, you know, persons who have now moved from corporate into that entrepreneurial field, as well as persons who were able to innovate and invent during this period, you know, and I'm sure that, and it's a global thing, you know, so, and I also liked how you were able to integrate your learnings from Massey, and as you spoke about the values and the things that you got from Massey, and transition that into how you run your business, so it stays with you. Right, so it really is inspiring hearing how you did this transition, which, as we discussed later, we know it's not always an easy road. But I always admired your courage. I have to say that when you stepped into it and you took a leap of faith, and I know you too would say that you took a leap of faith, you stepped into it, and you committed it, and you spoke about the massive family support, but you also your direct family support, two very important elements in this journey. So to sort of continue on that stream, so Julie, I want to ask you, so Alana is an example of somebody, as I said, who had a full-time job and then transitioned to this. So can you tell us a little bit in terms of from Massey's perspective, so persons in full-time jobs and how you see this all linking? Because I'm sure it's a question people will have, you know, what's our message that we want to communicate to our employees?
Thanks, Audra. And thanks, Alana and Anya. It's so inspiring. It's quite overwhelming. The emotion and the passion that comes across during this conversation. And thank you for the question in terms of you know, Massey's view on this. Massey has been a business with various mergers and acquisitions and changes over the years, but our group started nearly 100 years ago. 2023 will be our 100-year anniversary. And for us to be able to change and pivot at the speed that's going to be needed to be relevant, we have to make some changes, and we have to step into some conversations that maybe even 2 years ago or 5 years ago would have been like, you can't say that? How do you mean? You can't really talk about that? And so So I think that it's a really important conversation that we need to be having. For many, many years, there's an understanding that people have a side hustle, but it's nearly like, wait, you're not really supposed to talk about that. Really? So-and-so is doing that, but I don't think so-and-so knows. And you know, that's not really in line with our values. If we look at our, if we, you know, let's be honest, let's be transparent, let's encourage each other. And let's, I mean, you see Alana and the passion and the joy of doing what she knows she wants to do. I mean, that's got to be in line with our values. We have our code of ethics, our code of conduct. If anyone's not familiar with it, you just Google Massey Group Code of Conduct, and on one of the pages there, we actually have a paragraph about working outside of your employment. And the basic message is to be transparent and be upfront, and there's nothing that says you cannot do it. It's just that there are certain things, you know, of course, if it's in competition with our business, if it's going to distract you from your job, then that's not really going to be helpful. But for me, another thing that really was at the source of this conversation was a conversation to do with the disruption of traditional work and different restructuring exercises where we have had retrenchments and where we see also technology disrupting traditional administrative jobs. It's happening across the world. So you could just ignore that and say, no, we got to do our job and stick to business. But I think Massey being progressive, being able to have these conversations, really being creative about how can we face these difficult conversations about where there is restructuring, where there is retrenchment, and also when people are retiring and leaving the group, how can we do more to support those conversations, and so that they are, you know, not depressing and the end of the world. It can be an exciting new stage of your life, and I think that is really what we want to be looking at, odds. And so so just to summarize, one, we're not shying away from the conversation. It's already been happening. You said it, side hustles are not a new thing. But I think supporting so that we can actually help people to be more successful in their personal life, and also that will translate to their business, their jobs at work as well. Back to you all.
Great. Thank you, Julie. All right. So if somebody wanted to get guidance, as you're saying, we can go to the Code of Ethics, and I think what's highlighted in Code of Ethics is you speak to your CEO. Kind of just inform them that, you know, this is what's happening. And what I heard you say as well, it's really important that once it doesn't conflict with your day-to-day job and it's not taking it from your job, but we are supporting with the whole transition of where the world is going and the whole change as it relates to jobs, that if you have a passion, there's something you're interested in, you have a skill, that's similar to, as Alana shared, it can start off being something that you do at the side, and then you see how that transitions. So really, as Massey, we are embracing and supporting entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So Anya, I'd like to ask you this question. What has been your experience as an entrepreneur? So like Alana, you've been an entrepreneur and for a longer period of time. You know, what are some of the challenges, but also what are some of the opportunities you've seen over the years?
Actually, I just saw that somebody posted a very similar question, so I'm going to take the chance to answer that simultaneously, which was from Sapphire. What has been the most challenging aspect of your entrepreneurial journey experience, if any? Thank you, Sapphire. Gosh, there's so many, and I think prioritizing one, it depends on the given day. Some of them being, you know, on the flip side of what Alana mentioned, which I think is probably what drew me to being an entrepreneur to begin with, which is flexibility, is uncertainty. You know, not knowing all the time you don't have a consistent flow of income, you don't necessarily have someone to go to stabilize your financial situation, or there's a lot of up and down in your everyday life. And I think as I became, I'm a career entrepreneur. I've really never had a job. I had one job once, which was very short term, so I barely count that. But I think not necessarily knowing what is the next step. Once I reach a certain threshold of my accomplishment, what comes next? How do I gauge my own growth in my own career? There's no one pathway, and there's no one career guideline as to what your trajectory is. And I'm not saying that when you work in a corporate environment, that's entirely clear either. But at least, there's some stepping stones from one role to another, one department to another, etc. So a lot of big gray open space is in front of you most of the time. And I think you have to be really comfortable with that. It takes certain personalities to thrive with that, and to really feel inspired by and excited, as Julie mentioned. It's not necessarily doom and gloom when there's all this gray open space. In fact, it's a blank canvas. So I think everything that's a challenge, there's the other side of the coin. That's a really exciting and potentially massive opportunity that perhaps when you do have more structure, you can tend to sort of stick within the boundaries of what's in front of you. So I try my best when I do have challenging moments, challenging days, challenging periods, to remember that I chose this. Number one, it was a choice. And two, that on the flip side of wherever my fear might lie, there's so much opportunity. There's so much potential. There's anything's possible. And to me, that's what kind of keeps me going in every moment.
Great. Thank you, Anya. So I'm going to pose my last question to Alana, and then I'm going to hand over to Renee, who will field the questions that we're getting from you, our participants. So my last question to Alana at this point. Alana, if you had one piece of advice to give someone just starting out, as a follow-up to what Anya was just sharing, what would that be from you?
I use this acronym for hustle. And I basically just want to read something for my audience. And I think it summarizes what I would have to say to them. So I want you to be steadfast, not give up. Believe in yourself and your vision. Follow through. Don't be afraid to fail, fall down, dust yourself off, get back on that horse, and give it your best. And I can honestly say that your best will never let you down. You will always feel that satisfaction. So with hustle, we basically say it's you have to have unwavering passion, find ways to keep yourself motivated. That S stands for your skill application. Each and every one of us has a God-given talent. And then we go to T, and it's just being I want to get that word because it's actually a acronym. So it's being, and that L is learning. When you think your business is losing and it's down, it's not. It is learning lessons. And finally, that E would be enrichment of life. And I spoke about that before, because sometimes you think, I'm doing this for my family and it's all about you. And when you look at the bigger picture, you can actually see you have a place in the universe and you are making a difference. It's not just about you. And when you come from a place of genuineness and love, you can only succeed. So that would be my advice.
Great, thank you, Alana. And maybe I can just ask you, can you just tell us what L was? Because I didn't hear what you said L was.
So L, Audra, is for learning. You know, in a business, you talk about profits and losses, and you think that your business is going to have downtime. I prefer to not look at losses, look at it as lessons to be learned. And you know, you learn your lesson and you move on. You pick up yourself and you keep going at it, and you will succeed.
Great, thank you, Alana. So I know we have lots of questions that persons want to ask, so I'm going to hand you over to Rennie, who will moderate our Q&A section.
Thank you, Audra. Good morning to everybody. Yes, we do have quite a few questions thus far. I was able to answer our first question, which was for Alana. The person wanted to know the brand of coconut water because they love to support the Massey family. So I posted it there in the chat so everybody can go ahead and support Alana. Our next question is for Anya, and it's from Sapphire. What has been the most challenging aspect of your entrepreneurial journey, experience, if any?
Actually, I answered that one earlier, so I don't want to take the time away from anybody else who might want to ask other questions to other panelists.
Okay, no problem. You want to repeat just in case that person might have missed it, in case they joined late?
Sure, no problem. In a nutshell, what I was saying is that the biggest challenges have a lot to do with the uncertainty of charting your own path. But really and truly, every challenge has the other side of the coin, which is a lot of opportunity and a lot of possibilities. So I think wherever, like everything else in life, I suppose, but as an entrepreneur, the lack of clarity that you might find yourself in, as opposed to being in a more structured situation, is really to be looked at from the flip side, and to try to find the opportunity in every moment and dig deep every time of remembering the choice that you made to be able to have the independent life that you have.
Okay, great, thank you. This question is probably for Julie. Is this initiative available for Massey associates and non-associates?
At this point, for the nudge stands, we are showcasing proven entrepreneurs. So at this point, it is entrepreneurs external to Massey. But I do want to stress that nudge is evolving, and we are looking to see how we can ensure that Massey employees can benefit from the things that we're doing. So things like, for example, courses that will be designed for, you know, the entrepreneurial mindset, things like that. There will be close collaboration with Massey Learning Institute, and I really encourage you, those of you on the call that have an interest, to give the feedback to Massey Learning Institute so that we can develop courses that are really relevant. So that's the answer to that. The stands at this point are not for showcasing Massey employees' products, it's for proven entrepreneurs. But we do want to find a way, because the whole purpose is this transition and supporting the growth of small and medium enterprises.
Okay, great, thank you. One is from Dexter, and it's actually a comment. I'm hearing Mrs. Avey talking about not being able to talk about your side hustle, and it is so true. I am here 20 years this year, and that was so true. Now I speak of mine boldly, so thank you for this. So he just wants to send his thanks. All right, we'll move on now to Devra. What's the first step to take in starting up a side hustle, especially when you have several ideas? Who wants to take that one?
I think that might be great for Alana, seeing that she did actually that.
So I just want to respond to the person that has several ideas. Good for you, because having one complete idea is a challenge enough. But if you're not certain about which of your ideas is actually going to work, or as I say, put bread on the table, you really need to experiment with each of them. You can do it very small scale, and that would be dipping your toe in the water. Also, bearing in mind that the more products and the more services that you have to offer requires more time. I'm not here to sell anyone a dream. This is hard work. So if you are at a desk and if you're a Massey employee or an employee of any given company, you may find that challenging to promote those 5 different. So it's like having a tree and it's, all of the branches need attending to and pruning. So you need to do a little self reflection. What is really burning at you? Trust your instincts at all time. I tell people, that feeling in your tummy, that is the one. So spend a little time with yourself and you find that one. I'm not saying you can't try all of them, but I would suggest starting out with one.
Thanks so much, Alana. This next question, I'll say this next one is for Julie. You are all brilliant, and I appreciate your sharing with us today. How does the side hustle fit in with the policy in place to not sell in the office? When a ready market presents itself in the office itself, what can we do in light of this policy in place?
That's a great question, and that is one that is it's a really tough one. First of all, again, going back to the guidelines, the very clear guidelines in the Code of Ethics, if it's going to distract from the office, from the business, the company that's paying your salary, then that has to be considered. At the same time, I mean, I could talk about the experience with Alana. Alana, when she started with her coconut water, there was no distraction in the office. Alana had, she was bringing in coconut water very early in the morning. We had people would organize it during the day at, whether it's at lunchtime, however it was. And so there wasn't the distraction. So I think a lot of this conversation is about relying on our values of honesty and integrity. And there's no rule book for it. So again, it's being considerate to, if it's distracting from the business that, I mean, Massey is paying our salaries, and we want Massey to be successful. So if it's distracting for that, there's an integrity part of it where we need to think, am I actually putting more time into this than doing my job? And no one can really give you a definite answer on that except for yourself when you look within, and then also by having the open conversations with your supervisor or your CEO. So yeah, I don't know of a policy that says we cannot sell in the office. So that's something that I am not aware of. I haven't seen that written down anywhere. What I do know is that even in terms of like emails and sending out emails with, across the group to promote certain things, that can be a huge distraction and also inconsiderate for people because you already get so many emails across. So it's a difficult one. Whoever did this and knows of a policy where you cannot sell in the office, I need to know where that's written because I'm not aware of that one. But yeah, I hope that's helpful. It's not, again, it's this whole point about relying on our values and looking within as to what you believe is fair and having the integrity in what you're doing, and then reaching out to your boss, your supervisor, or your colleagues to see what you think is a fair balance.
Thanks, Julie. I'll go ahead and ask this next question as you're here. Will Nudge be offering financial support for entrepreneurs?
Nudge has aspirations, and as many of you are involved in the budgeting process for this year, seeing how we can develop a fund. As you can imagine, there's a lot of governance that would need to be done on that. How do we determine the criteria? But there is an aspiration that we will have a fund again, this is a conversation that Anya and I have been having, and it would be a fund for entrepreneurs that would be, and again, we don't have all the criteria defined now, but the initial stages, things that are going to support local, things that are going to have a positive impact on our environment, things that are going to be sustainable, and then probably also things that could be aligned with businesses at Massey. I mean, there's one an entrepreneur in St. Lucia who is, for those of you on the call from St. Lucia may know of a gentleman who is started a business a few years ago, a small business collecting sargassum seaweed and using that seaweed and turning it into organic fertilizer. And something like that, to me, it's like, let's help this person to be as successful as that, as he can be. That's going to create jobs. That's, tidying up the St. Lucia beaches. It's doing something that's good for the environment. I mean, it kind of ticks all the boxes in my mind as to what we would want to support. That's very much in line with Massey's values, and a huge positive socio-economic impact. Nothing right now, but that is the aspiration, to have funding for entrepreneurs in the future.
Thank you so much, Julie. Okay, our next question is for Alana. How long did it take for you to leave your job to pursue the coconut business full-time? Any regrets and advice on the timeline for such an exit?
Thank you for your question. And I did not set a timeline for leaving my desk, but I'm happy to let my audience know I would have walked up and down the corridor and had numerous conversations with Julie and Audra and another one of our members of staff called Amanda. And you need to be open and honest. I really want to go back to, sorry, to Julie saying and touching on the distractions. If you have an idea and it is burning up and all you can think about while you're at your desk is this idea, then technically you're stealing the company's time, and that is time to move. We're being open and honest. In my case, my husband would be on Edward Street selling the coconut water out of the trunk. And then when we went to bottle coconut water, I would take orders on my phone, like the night before, and I would put it in the fridge and label with everyone's name so as to not cause a distraction. In my case, I'm the proud mom of 6, and I was continuously being distracted by whether there was a school meeting or a child that felt they could call anytime they wanted. And you need to always balance the scale. And when you come from a place of honesty, I knew that I was not giving 100% to Massey. And Massey had always supported me. And I want to tell you, don't put a timeline. What you can do is yes, it's good to set goals for yourself, but have the hard conversations. There's always someone that you can speak to within the organization who would be able to give you a listening ear and possibly give you advice. And just hearing yourself sometimes makes things clearer for you. And you would know this is the time when I need to take that leap of faith.
Okay, thank you so much, Alana. There was another question here that was for you as well. Just hold 1 second, let me pull it up. Seems to have disappeared from my list. I'll just go ahead and ask another question, not to worry. This one is for Anya. Can you elaborate on the faith and patience that goes into starting a business? Also, how do you find ways to enjoy the process?
Sure. For me, the faith and patience requires a sort of personal inner work that I think impacts everything in our lives, whether you're of a particular faith or you are, you would describe yourself as more spiritual, wherever that lands. I think that being an entrepreneur or in any situation really, but having to continuously draw on your inner strength and your inner intuition, as Alana pointed out, requires whatever practices and routines suit you. In my case, although I'm not good at this all the time, things like meditation. In my most effective periods of my life, I use things like affirmations, journaling if I'm really good, and having a routine every day is really what works and what I've seen work in my life that allow me to be introspective and to hear that voice that we all have. And sometimes because of duties, responsibilities, chaos in your life, that voice can get very muddled. I think that it's a proven practice in my life that if I'm connected to source, if I'm exposing myself to the sort of people and practices, whether that's yoga, meditation, writing affirmations, really drawing on something much deeper and bigger than myself, then faith comes naturally. I feel buoyed by the universe. I see miracles in my everyday life. Things start to just line up. And I also have experienced the complete opposite. When I'm not doing those things, things are chaotic, things feel very muddled. So I think that faith is really an active practice. In fact, just last night I saw somebody else about books. I was reading this book, rereading it. It's by Marianne Williamson. It's called The Law of Divine Compensation on Work, Money, and Miracles. And it's like this type of reading, it helps me to remember that each and every one of us are divine, and each and every one of us have access to something much bigger than ourselves. And that's really what we're channeling. You know, you're never alone if you have the faith that you're not. And I think that's really what I mean by faith. And I know to some people that might sound a little bit airy-fairy, but truthfully, when I won Project Runway, that's really what I was channeling, something much, much bigger than me. Of course, we're all born with talent, and that's God-given. And I think our main calling is to be humble enough and truthful enough to ourselves to just channel those talents through us. And whether that's in a job or it's in a practice that's entrepreneurial, either way, that's really what I mean by faith.
Thank you so much, Anya. Thank you for that. Our next question is for Julie. What will the selection process be like for the businesses eventually funded by Nudge, or the criteria? And how often will these funds be distributed to certain businesses?
I don't know. We haven't decided yet. So we are really in the earliest stages, and I would love to hear from you. And I don't even know how we would do this, but to understand what you think we should be investing in. So I'm not sure how we can do that, but we are co-creating this. So, you know, one of our expectations of Massey leaders is to co-create the future, even in doing the Nudge stands and thinking about how we can best support entrepreneurs. We listen to the entrepreneurs themselves, because, you know, when COVID hit, we had an idea as to what we would do, and maybe we should do an online market. But listening to the entrepreneurs that we were liaising with, they said, no, actually, we don't want an online market. We want you to direct online interest to our own social media handles. So I'm just being very open that we do not have the criteria yet. I think in the past, we might have waited and said, okay, let's get it really organized and then launch. For those of you that know me, I quite often, I get regular feedback that I'm that I'm bold and courageous, but I might also be a little hippie-ish. But stepping into the uncertainty is, I think, what we're doing and what we should do, and listening to our and engaging with our employees, these couple hundred people that are in this conversation today, and finding a way for y'all to influence what we invest in, so that it's great for each individual, but also for Massey to have the environment for honest conversations. So we don't have the criteria yet. Another point I wanted to make, I know we're getting closer to the end, I just wanted to say that entrepreneurship and some of the skills that would be needed and what I'm learning from conversations with Anya, listening to Alana, there are so many skills that we can practice at work to prepare us for entrepreneurship. Or not, you know, this isn't a conversation for everyone to be an entrepreneur, but it's having practicing the discipline that I'm hearing, really owning and being empowered in the area that you work in, whether it's a service desk at Massey Motors, whether it's looking after your internal customers, if, depending on the job that you're doing. There are so many skills that you can practice in your job today that can strengthen you if you choose at some point to go into to having your own business. So that was just another point I wanted to make. And I hope, Ords, you might have some comment on how we can have this engagement and hear from people how we can co-create the criteria for funding for this Massey fund that we're going to have.
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, there's a lot of interest in based on what we're seeing. So I think certainly today is the start of a conversation, but it's going to be the start of many conversations and engagements with people. Really, because we want people, as you rightly said, to even in your current roles, to start to have that entrepreneurial mindset. You know, start to, when you do your job, how do you reinvent yourself? How do you reinvent your role? Right, and start to see the opportunities that can lie, because our businesses are not going to continue to be the same. The world is not going to continue to be the same, and how do we start to prepare ourselves and equip ourselves to evolve? And when we see ourselves doing that, it really helps to take away some of the anxiety and fear, because we are taking charge and taking control. So I think certainly, just as we are doing this session today, we're going to have a lot more conversations around this to help prepare our employees, help prepare ourselves for this new shift. Or any other questions?
Sure, I think we still have some more time. Let's go ahead and ask this question from Michael. This is to both Anya and Alana. Fear, doubt, and self-sabotaging behaviors where you would want to go back into your comfort zone or your old job, etc. How did you respond to that emotion and that period of the journey? And how did you learn to accept the person your inner voice was calling you to be?
Alana, would you mind taking the first stab at that?
No problem, Anya. So I just want to be clear on the question. Renee, can you just repeat the first half?
Sure, no problem. Fear, doubt, and self-sabotaging behaviors where you would want to go back to your comfort zone or your old job. How did you respond to that emotion and that period of the journey? How did you learn to accept the person your inner voice was calling you to be?
That is a good one. And
all of that noise.
Each person is different, and Anya would have spoken earlier about being in a good place. And I've recently completed a 21-day meditation. Just putting it out there for anyone else that might be interested. And it was about abundance, Deepak meditation. And sometimes you feel that desire because there is really the ups and downs of how much income is going to come in this month, and you really got used to having that salary in that account on that specific day. But I'm just telling you, push through whatever your faith is and reach out to your friends. And I have no shame in telling you all, I would call my Massey peeps and discuss with them, and they would be like, Alana, you've already left. Why are you thinking about coming back? And nothing, let me make this abundantly clear. Nothing is wrong with going back to the drawing board. I would have recently done a short contract with Massey ACL, one of Massey's subsidiaries. And I looked at that as an opportunity to build my business as well. and I would have more clients coming out from that particular subsidiary. So for the most part of it, there's nothing wrong, and it's about crossing the bridges and not burning them down. Always remember that, you know. And the support is really the people. Massey's biggest asset is the people, and I am always one to remind folks of that. You know, we're 10,000 strong. I remember with the whole rebranding a couple of years ago, how powerful I felt when I would see people with their new Massey logos in the heart of Port of Spain, and you feel safe and you feel protected and you hold on to that. I'm telling you all, hold on to that. You're leaving a job, not the people. And once you stay focused on that positivity, you find ways to motivate yourself. We've been hacking coconut water, coconuts open at 4 o'clock in the morning, blasting music and singing. And people would say we're crazy, but how many of us haven't been watched, you know, a Netflix series until that hour? You find that motivation. And for me, it is about family and customers that are relying on me for that coconut water, whether it's a health issue or whatever it is. I have elderly customers. I know they only buy because they like the old talk with Lana. You know, when I stop by, it makes them happy. So you just do what you need to do and keep yourself going. Anya, anything to add?
Hard to follow on from you, Alana, but I will say that, you know, and I say this carefully because, again, it's been the thread of the conversation that we're not necessarily trying to encourage everybody to just leave their job and go off and do something. But I will say that there's nothing like the feeling of doing something that you know you're supposed to be doing. There's nothing like the feeling of, when I remember, for instance, the first time I ever sold a piece of clothing that I designed, and my customer came over to my apartment because that's where I was selling from at the time, tried on this skirt and it fit perfectly, and she was so thrilled and I was so thrilled, and then she gave me money for this item of clothing, and my whole mind was blown, my whole life changed. I this feeling of something that I created bringing joy to someone else, which I think, you know, speaks to what Alana is saying. It's something that I cannot possibly express in words. And all those feelings, Michael, of fear and doubt and self-sabotaging, they just do not exist. And those memories, they stay in your cells. They stay in your bones. You never forget those moments. And there are ways in which those memories will always cast away the self-doubt and the fear. Because really and truly, fear is an illusion. And all of the other magic that life is about is what's true. And ourselves and our humanity, we know that. That's our divine wisdom.
Thank you both. Thank you both for that response. I hand back over to Audra now because I see we're running out of time. Audra?
Great, thank you, Rennie, and thank you, Rennie, for moderating our Q&A session. You know, I sat down here sort of glued and just listening and, you know, learning so much. So again, thank you, Julie and Anya and Alana for, you know, for sharing each with so much passion. And I certainly got from what you said. And our idea today is to encourage each of us to follow our passion, you know, follow your dream. So it may be within Massey, very much so, because not everybody may choose the path, the entrepreneurial path. But also for those of you who have a dream, have a desire to follow that path, we're hoping that the conversation today would have given you some encouragement around that, right? So this conversation we had today is as we said earlier, it's a new conversation for Massey. We're in early days. This conversation is evolving, just as how things are evolving. And we're really hoping that at the end of today's session that you would have given some more thought to having this entrepreneurial mindset. And we stress on entrepreneurial in terms of, like Alana did, going out on her own, but also an entrepreneurial, an IN mindset that says that in my role, in my function, how am I reinventing myself, reinventing my role as we continue to navigate this new reality. So in closing, we want to thank again our panelists for their passion, their inspiration, their sharing so heartfelt. Thank you to my MLI team, without which today would never be possible, and Jumod from Massey Tech, our product technical support, who we can't ever do this without the help, and the MLI team is normally behind the scenes. If you have any questions that you wanted to get answered that we weren't able to get answered during the time frame, please send us an email and we'll direct it to our panelists and get a response back to you. So our next webinar is September the 2nd, 2020. We want to continue to encourage you to stay safe, continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to evolve, find your passion, seek your passion, follow your passion. But to my Massey family, most importantly, we want to continue to invite you to level up. So we'll see you again soon. Bye. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.